Serafina and Arcadio, Part 3. Their First Encounter. When I was young, before the relentless passage of time took my beloved grandmother away from us, our conversations were a treasure chest of stories from a bygone era. She had a way of transporting me back to her youth, to a world so different and yet so familiar. I remember one evening in particular, as we sat at the kitchen table, when I asked her something I had always wondered about. "Grandma, how did you meet Grandpa?" She looked at me with an expression filled with warmth and secrets. A smile played on her lips, but there was something more, something deep and almost sorrowful. She was silent for a long time, as if gathering her thoughts from a time buried in the haze of memories. Then she began to speak. "It was a bright and sunny morning," she started, her voice soft and nostalgic. "My cousin Peening came over, full of energy and excitement as always. She told me eagerly that someone wanted to meet me. She also said we would meet him in a neighboring village where a wedding was taking place." Grandma smiled warmly, her eyes sparkling at the memory. "I didn't even hesitate," she admitted. "I was curious and wanted to meet him, even though I didn't say it out loud. But there was a small problem. I didn't have a nice dress to wear." Then Peening, who always had a solution, promised that I could borrow her finest and most beautiful dress if I went with her. How could I say no to that? The day finally arrived, and Grandma described how she carefully slipped into the long white gown her cousin had chosen for her. She ran her hands over the smooth fabric, marveling at its elegance. It felt like a dream against her skin. She couldn't help but wonder why Peening had insisted on lending her such a beautiful dress, even nicer than her cousin's own outfit. It made her feel both grateful and slightly puzzled. Her cousin even took the time to style her hair into soft curls, despite Grandma feeling it wasn't necessary. She thought she looked perfectly fine as she was, but Peening's enthusiasm was infectious, and Grandma didn't have the heart to say no. When she stepped into the church, it was as if she had entered another world. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting the floors in vibrant rainbow hues. The scent of fresh flowers mingled with the warm aroma of polished wood, creating an atmosphere of serene beauty. A gentle breeze carried the faint strains of a violin, its melody weaving through the stillness like a whisper from heaven. But Grandma didn't have time to fully take in the scene, for the moment she crossed the threshold, her heart skipped a beat. Time seemed to stand still, or at least that's how it felt. It was in that instant she sensed this would be a moment she'd remember for the rest of her life. "I felt all eyes on me," Grandma continued, her voice tinged with both amazement and disbelief. It was as if the entire church froze and all movement ceased. As we stepped through the doors, the congregation rose to their feet, a ripple of anticipation sweeping across the room. Before I could comprehend what was happening, someone gently took my arm and began leading me forward. My heart pounded, uncertainty gripping me as each step brought me closer to the altar. With every passing moment, the weight of confusion grew heavier in my mind. It was there, standing before the altar with the crowd's expectant gaze fixed on me, that the truth hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was the bride. I stared at Pining in complete shock, my breath caught in my throat. She just gave me a sly smile, her eyes sparkling with mischievous delight, as if everything was unfolding exactly according to her clever plan. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of being utterly unprepared. Grandma paused, a hint of amusement creeping into her tone. But it was no surprise to your grandfather. At this point, her smile deepened as she recounted the first time she met grandfather. "It was at the market," she said softly, her voice taking on a dreamlike quality. "I remember that day so vividly. He rode into the bustling square on his horse, sitting so tall and proud, as if the world itself bowed to him. The sunlight caught the sheen of his hair and the glint of his belt buckle, and for a moment, it was as though everything around him stilled. He dismounted gracefully, and when his eyes met mine, I felt my breath hitch. It was such an intense gaze, as if he could see straight into my soul." She chuckled lightly, a faint blush creeping into her cheeks. I must have looked away instantly, but it was too late. His gaze lingered, and I felt like butter melting under the midday sun. My sister teased me the entire way home, saying my cheeks were as red as the tomatoes in my basket. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. When he pursued me in the weeks that followed, I turned him down, insisting that marriage wasn't on my radar. I had other things to focus on, and settling down was not part of my plans. But he was patient and respectful, never once pressuring me, and always waiting for the chance to see me again. Returning to the church story, she continued with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "And so, it didn't surprise your grandfather when Pining pulled her little stunt. He had been in love with me for years, ever since that day at the market. He told me later that he'd been waiting for the perfect chance to make me his wife, and Pining, ever the schemer, decided to speed things along." I stood there speechless in the church, my thoughts racing. I wanted to tell them all it couldn't be real, that such a thing couldn't happen without my knowing. But then I saw him. Her voice softened, and her eyes seemed to sparkle even more. "Your grandfather was standing there, waiting for me. When he looked at me, it was as though the entire world had fallen away, and only we existed. He gazed at me like I was the most important thing he'd ever seen. And when he gently took my hand, he said, 'I hope you're not too angry with me. I've waited so long to tell you how much I care about you.' In that moment, everything fell into place, and suddenly, it felt right. Somehow, amidst the chaos, there was peace." With a gentle laugh, Grandma concluded her story at the kitchen table. "Sometimes," she said, her voice full of wisdom, "a little chaos is just what you need to uncover life's hidden treasures."